Good morning, traders. It is July 31st. It is Tuesday morning. Taking a look at the charts here, we've got the US dollar index, and you can see these green boxes here, or sorry, the blue boxes, they are support levels. And the US dollar has been pulling back. It's kind of been consolidating here, trying to break out to the upside on a weekly chart basis for a while. And really, it's just been kind of chopping sideways and kind of making new highs and pulling back. Overall, this pattern here, if we just zoom in a little bit, looks as though it's trying to put a bit of a bottom in here, and it looks as though it might be forming a little bit of a bull flag. Really, it needs to break above these two previous pivot highs, so the top of this blue box. If it can break that, then we could see another run going higher. Just zooming out a little bit, I pointed this out yesterday that we've kind of got this broadening formation unfolding with the US dollar index, so we could see the market rally, the US dollar rally up to the top of this range, pushing to a new high. Overall, a broadening formation is bearish, and depending on how this moves, it may be more of a shorting opportunity. If we do see another push up here, we might see the market correct, the equities market correct pretty sharply. But overall, I think if it got back up here, then we'd probably be looking to get long the market, because the US dollar will likely try to come back down. And overall, when you get these kind of surges, one, two, and if we got one more surge to a new high on a broadening formation, usually three surges to a high is usually somewhat bearish, and usually you'll get a sharp pullback and breakdown after that. Now, just kind of clearing the slate, taking one more look here, you can see we have had a strong move to the downside, and you could say that is possibly flagging and pausing here for a little bit. If it does finish this possible bear flag, then we could see it come down to the next key support zone, which would act as a nice three-wave correction, and from there it could end up moving sharply higher. Now, just to zoom out a little bit, you can see how this pattern could play out. If we do have this pullback, a pause here, and another three-wave down, that would give us more or less a possible head and shoulders formation. So we'd see price come down here, and then we'd have to really see how price moves. If it ends up flagging in a weak pattern going this way, that would create possible right shoulder in this neckline, and we could end up seeing a very sharp move in the US dollar index to the downside. So we're really kind of watching all these patterns and how they play out on multiple time frames, and the overall bigger picture to see how things are going to affect the dollar. But right now, the dollar's still holding up well, and if you look at the weekly chart, just pull this chart up, you can see where we trade in the grand scheme of things. We're still a nice bullish chart pattern, and if you just draw a simple trend line, you can see we still could consolidate. We got the support level. It could consolidate for a couple weeks, and the market might not even go anywhere overall, but eventually we still have a very strong support trend line on the US dollar index, and eventually we still could see it go up here into this range, and the markets could sell off very sharply. Now, keep in mind, this is a weekly chart, so you can see how far this move is. This is several points away from the current price action, and again, this is like a possible 1 or 2 month rally, which would send stocks tumbling down. Taking a look at energies, here is the crude oil chart. This chart I pointed out over the past couple sessions. It's starting to look a little bit more bearish. We've had this kind of run up and this kind of pickup in speed here, and then it pulled back fairly sharply. Overall, it's starting to form, it looks to me like a little bit of a bear flag, and you get a good feeling for it actually on the daily chart. So if we just look into the daily chart, you can see the price action here. We did come up to a resistance zone right across here, which was this level that came down, got oversold, consolidated for a little bit, broke below it, consolidated under that for a little bit, forming a little bit of a bear flag, and then it broke down for the second half of the move. So we've come up, reached that level, sellers stepped in, pulled the crude oil price down, forming a little bit of a bear flag, and now we've got this kind of tight little range, and you could say this is a little bit of a bear flag here, and to me it looks as though it could come back down and pull down to around the 85, 86 level, possibly right down to around the 84 level. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in crude oil right now, and it may be a good little short play, but overall the grand scheme of things, it's still trading in a very large kind of basing pattern in my opinion, and it could float around down here for a while before it really breaks above the 92, 93 and starts to head back up to the highs. Looking at natural gas had a big run yesterday. You can see it had a nice pop yesterday. It's pulling back just a little bit this morning. Overall, natural gas has got some pretty good momentum behind it, and there's a big conversion vehicles that are starting to move to natural gas, and it's really, I think there's a lot of people, just as many people who tried to short it. If we go to the daily chart and zoom way back, you can see how long it's been falling for, a couple years anyway, and so many people are trying to catch the bottom. I think now that it's starting to reverse up, I think all those people who got burned trying to catch the bottom are going to probably try and do revenge trading and pile in and try and make their money back on a move up. So I think that's why we've got some pretty good momentum to the upside. Overall, we are starting to enter into a key resistance. If you just take this, we did break out this little bit of a basing pattern here, and if we just go to the current price, you can see where we're trading. We've got this key pivot low over here, which eventually broke down over here, and that's right where we're trading at right now. And I wouldn't be surprised, usually you see a pretty strong pop into resistance and then you see it get sold off into pretty quick. So we are trading right up at that level this morning, literally just touched it. It's starting to pull back a bit. We'll see how things play out there, but overall natural gas has some pretty good momentum behind it. And if we just draw a simple trend line, you can see that where we're trading on it, we're going to eventually get wedged in here between key resistance and the support trend line. And if we do get a breakdown, it will most likely be fairly sharp because it has had a strong move. We've got a couple key pivot lows here that usually key pivot lows get penetrated to shake the market out, and you can see here after a nice run up you usually break a couple pauses here, a couple pivot lows to shake the market out with a little three-wave correction. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw 1, 2, 3 wave correction to break these two levels, which would give us a nice overall rising trend line from these previous peaks and set up for a major run back up. And I've been looking for a pullback really to the 280 level for a little while. Really want to see that level actually broken. Overall, it's natural gas has just been squeezing higher and higher with all the talk. It's pretty much headline news every day is the price of natural gas. Looking at precious metals, here's a 4-hour chart of precious metals. Just zoom out real quick, give you a big picture. You can see we've got key resistance across here, and every time we get up to that level we usually see sellers step in. So we're trading back up at that level now. We've been there for a couple days and we have yet to break out of it. So overall gold is still in a downtrend. It is trading sideways here for quite a while, so it does have a little bit of a basing pattern here, but overall it needs to break this red line and close firmly above it before we can really say that it's starting to break out to the upside. Now I know a lot of people are drawing all kinds of different trend lines, something like this, saying it's broken out. I don't really see it that way. Really the main resistance are the horizontal levels. It's got to break a previous high. It's got to make a higher high and a higher low before you can really say the trend is going up. Jumping the gun a little early, it can pay off sometimes for sure, but overall it's not in an uptrend until it starts to break a couple previous highs. You really want to see at least 2 previous highs broken, and you want to see a nice controlled pullback or pause before it actually starts to go higher. And overall it hasn't really done that yet. It's flirting with this previous high, and it really probably needs to break all 3 of these because they're clustered so close together. Once it breaks above that, then you could say that it is now in an uptrend, but overall it is yet to break that resistance level. Looking at silver, here's a silver chart, very similar, has yet to break that previous red resistance line. We just zoom out a little bit on it here. You can see the downtrend that we've got, and again a lot of people are drawing different trend lines on silver saying it's broken out to the upside, but again in my opinion it hasn't. It has yet to break a previous pivot high, and really you want to usually see 2 pivot highs broken before an uptrend is made. So usually you'll see a strong impulse wave. Once it breaks 1, it should pick up momentum, hopefully break 2 if it's a strong move, so you'd see it go up, and then you actually see it pause because it'll be overbought after a strong surge like that, and usually it's the first pullback on a breakout you want to look to get long for a continued move up. So that's kind of what we're looking for right now. And silver and gold are both flirting with just their first level of pivot highs. And yes, they've broken some trend lines, but overall, they're not a key trend line in my opinion yet. Looking at the gold miners, here is the 4-hour chart of gold miners, drawing a couple different trend lines. Overall, we're getting close to next resistance level, which you just draw a line across here. It goes right through the middle of this consolidation right here. Again, we had a consolidation right across this level and a spike low which came back up above it. We had a little consolidation right here, and again we've got these down trend lines. We've had a nice strong run up in gold miners, and in my opinion they're getting a little long in the teeth. They are at resistance, they're at horizontal resistance, they're at trendline resistance. They haven't really had any pullback since this bounce back here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the overall market start to pull back here, gold, silver, gold miners, and we could see it possibly pull back a little bit down into this level. We're going to find some support somewhere right through here, which will be this pivot low and more or less sit on top of this little cluster here. And from there, it could be an opportunity to possibly start to look. You could cherry pick maybe a couple gold miners, because they will, once they do break out, they'll probably make a pretty strong run. You could cherry pick a couple small positions for a potential breakout and go from there. Now looking at bonds, bonds had a nice move up yesterday and this morning. Seeing money move into bonds, and usually you can say it's a little bit of foreshadowing. The big money is moving out of some equities yesterday, moving into bonds as the safe play. Overall, the bond chart I can't say looks very bullish right now. This price action, very strong move to the downside. That's very bearish. A little bit of a bear flag slash dead cat bounce, and it's more or less come right up into resistance, which is through this previous cluster high. A little bit of a pivot low here, and again we're trading down on this this moving average. It's trading up underneath it. We did have some strong volume selling, and this little bounce has happened on very light volume, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see it maybe consolidate, pull back a little bit, and see if it can form a base or something before it goes higher. If it does, but overall I don't really see anything tradable in bonds. I do feel as though the equities market is trying to top out here. As long as we don't get any crazy headline news, I don't really see the market moving up. Overall, all the equities indexes, they're all trading at key resistance levels. They're all overbought, and really the only thing that's going to take them up to test the previous highs from several months ago is really going to just be some type of news out of the ECB or something like that, or jobless claims, and that would really send it up. So if we don't get anything like that, which we've failed to really get good news for a while other than some rumors, then I do think we're going to see equities pull back, and we'll probably see bonds continue to work their way back up with some strength. But overall, this chart pattern isn't really, it's just kind of giving mixed signals in my opinion. Looking at the SP 500, here is the daily chart, and overall you can see we've been kind of riding this trend going higher. I feel as though we're coming into a topping pattern just like this, where you get a strong surge up, and more or less these cycles start to top out up here, and then hopefully with any luck we'll see the market start to roll over pretty sharp here any day. Now another thing to point out is you can see this red line here. Usually what happens is once you'll get a spike in this, more or less it's everybody chasing the move or piling in at the beginning of a wave, and usually you'll see a spike. It'll push up for a couple of days. You get that buying momentum, short covering, and then eventually see the market pause. This was a little bit of a trend reversal. Anyways, once that instead of pulling back, the market just paused, which was a bullish sign there. But then we saw a couple surges here of buying, and we saw it play out for a couple of days. Cycles topped out. Then we saw the market pull back. Then we saw another spike in buying. It took a couple of days for that buying momentum to stall out. Cycles topped, pulled back. Then we saw another surge of buying. It took a few days for the momentum to slow down, and then the cycles topped. We saw it pull back, and this week we've seen we've seen a bigger than normal spike of people moving in here. Of course, we've had 2 days of more or less rumors. and that really added some extra juice to the market. But overall, we've got that panic surge of everybody piling in. Cycles are starting to top. It's been a couple days here, and I do feel as though we may get a little bit of a push higher, a real shakeout, just like what you see on all these. You usually see the last day actually push right up, make a new high, and then it'll actually reverse down, really just doing one final shakeout for the shorts. Overall, I do feel as though we're going to see the market pull back down to this range. And again, if we don't get any good news this week, I think we see the actual big breakdown start to happen in equities and finally get a good payout here. Looking at the futures chart this morning, you can see this is the past two trading sessions, and more or less we've been kind of trading sideways here. We did push up yesterday morning at the opening bell, and then it got stepped on with some strong volume. Traded sideways for most of the session. And in overnight trading, we went back up to a little bit of a double top test here, starting to pull back a little bit. Overall, the price action continues to kind of just trade along. Now, what we want to see today is we may see a bit higher prices or sideways action, and we'll see how the volume goes. Overall, it looks we may see volume diminish off even more here. And again, with us trading up at resistance on lighter volume, generally that points to lower prices. If I just switch the time frame here on the chart, the overall chart pattern here, if I just zoom out a little bit, looks very bearish. Let's try and get a couple previous tops here. You can see what we have here is more or less you get a move down, you get a bear flag, and then you see kind of the market give way and go down. And we're seeing a similar pattern here. You start to get a little bit of a move down, you get a little bear flag, and then the market moves down. And what we saw yesterday, we saw a little bit of a broadening formation. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. This is very similar to the US dollar index, how you get a broadening formation, which is usually a little sign of weakness. We see a little bit of a broadening formation here, and then we also saw a strong move down, and now we've just been flagging sideways more or less on light volume, and this kind of points to the start of a potential breakdown that could bring us to the lower end of the range or beyond. So that's kind of where we're standing this morning. Now, if you were just to picture overnight trading, we did come up in overnight trading, came up, made a double top, and it's starting to pull back now. The question is it going to grab some traction to the downside and really start to sell off here? I think we're going to wait for the Fed and the ECB before anything big is triggered. But if they disappoint, which they usually do when it comes to the meetings, then we're probably going to see the market give way and start to drop fairly sharply. Anyways, that's it for this morning, and I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.